Hey Java programmers, Bill Sky, the Java guy here today, and we're going to continue our discussion about mathematical functions. But what we're going to do today is talk about the mathematical, I'm not sure if this is the right word, hierarchy of operations, the operations that happen first to the operations that happen last. Now, if you are already a C or C++ programmer, if you're already a Python programmer, just about any programming language, they all do it the same. The way that they do it is that they do it based on the operation. Which operation is the most important? So let's just jump right into it. We're going to talk about the operations and the order in which they happen, but then also I'm going to show you some Java code, some examples of how you can override that using parentheses, things like that. So let's just jump right into it. Okay, so before we actually get into the code, what is the hierarchy of operations of a Java program when you're doing mathematics, when you're using the operators like plus, minus, multiplication, and division? Well, the first thing that happens is that the unary operator. A unary operator is an operator that takes a single argument, and that would be like the minus sign or the plus sign right up against a number. So what that will do is it will actually do that unary operator first. So it'll take the number 6, for instance, and turn it into a -6 if you have a minus sign in front of it. Now, there is some debate as to if this is hard and true, because parentheses are really the top level thing. Anything that you put in parentheses happens first. So if you have a unary operator like the minus sign in front of a set of parentheses, then you have something going on in those parentheses, that unary operator doesn't happen first. What happens first is what's inside the parentheses. So that's really what happens, is that it's inside the parentheses, and then the unary operator occurs. Now, if you in your equation, if you don't have any parentheses, then of course the unary operation occurs first. But if you do have parentheses, whatever happens in those parentheses happen first. Then if you're negating the result of those parentheses, like with the minus sign, then that happens, okay? So anything in the parentheses first, then unary, then multiplication and division, which are binary operators because you always have a left and a right one. So multiplication and division happen next from left to right. And then after that, you have addition and subtraction happens from left to right. Okay, so with those rules in mind, let's go ahead and jump into some code and actually try that stuff out. It's going to be kind of fun to see what you can do with it. So I'm going to go into my documents, into my Java projects, and I'm going to create a new project. And you can do this in Windows. It's the same no matter what you do. I'm using a different mouse today, so my right click isn't working for some reason. So okay, so let's call this operator hierarchy, and we'll go into it. And now let's go ahead and open this file up. Now it's opening up right now with the just the standard text editor on Linux. I'm going to go ahead and change it to, oops, looking at the wrong thing. Let's go ahead and change the open with to Genie. Now if you're using Visual Studio Code, no problem. If you're using Eclipse, no problem. I just find using Genie is so much easier. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. And damn it. Okay, so I'm going to set the path. And now one thing to remember, and I talk about this all through this series, your class has to be the same as your folder name. So I'm going to call this, what did we call this? We called this operator hierarchy. So operator hierarchy. Let's save it. Now let's compile it. And actually, it's also this right here. This file right here has to be the same name. So let's go ahead and make this main class. Yeah, it's not the directory, it's the file name. So the file name needs to be the same. We have it in a directory called operator hierarchy, so that'll be good for now. But let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to compile it. And then let's run it. And it runs fine. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to create some variables. So I'm going to do that up here in the main function. So I'm going to create some doubles. And I'm going to create 4 variables. And I'm going to give them each different values. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and build that. See how easy it is in Genie? And okay, so the variables have been created correctly. Okay, so what's next? Let's actually do some math. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to just say create an equation. I don't know. Let's just do something that uses all these operators. Well, what's wrong with my fingers today? Okay, let's get some of these. I typed them in wrong. All right, that looks good. All right, let's go ahead and build it. And it looks like, yep, I still have them typed wrong. All right, let's try it again. All right, it looks good. Okay, so there's my equation. Now let's go ahead and output it. So I'm going to say system.out.println result of a double 4 equals, and I always like to put that just to make sure that my program ended at the very end of the program. Okay, let's compile it. Oh, forget a semicolon here. Boy, something wrong with my fingers today. Okay. Happens to us all. All right, good. So we've got quite the number here. So this silly equation, the way that this worked is that it did the unary operator first, then it did the multiplication and division. No, then it did the parentheses. Well, there are no parentheses, so it won't do it. Then it's going to do multiplication and division from left to right. Then it's going to do addition and subtraction left to right. It's just going to start from the left and say, is it addition? Yes, well, I'm going to do it. Is it subtraction? Yes, I'm going to do it. So what did it actually do? Well, it did this -2. It multiplied this -2 first. Actually, it didn't multiply it. What it did was it changed the 2 to a -2. So it did that unary operation. Then, because there's no parentheses, it started to the left and said, okay, that's an addition, so I'm not going to do that. That's a multiplication. I'm going to do that. So it's going to do that one first. Then it's going to take the result of that, and it's going to see this division by double 1, and it's going to do that next, left to right. So it does this multiplication first, then, and let's put some parentheses in here. Then it does, so it does this first, then it does this division. So it takes the product of these two numbers and then divides it by double 1. So you could actually encircle it in parentheses like this, which is something I love to do. This is how I love to code. Then it does that. Okay, so now it's still moving to the right. So it sees this subtraction of double 3, but then it sees this multiplication of -2. So then it does that next. So now it's done with the multiplication and divisions. So then what happens? It starts back over here to the left and it sees the plus. Okay, so it's done with multiplication and divisions. Then it adds a double 1 to what this difference was, or what this result was of that whole thing. And then it takes this whole thing and subtracts this from it. So if I put this in parentheses, that's pretty much how it does it. Now, I love using parentheses like this. It does not change the speed of the compiler, the speed of the program. It doesn't make things any more complicated. In fact, it makes it more self-documenting. The code itself now is more self-documenting. And granted, experienced programmers don't need to have that self-documentation, but remember, when you're writing a program, you're not just writing it for yourself, you're writing it for those people that come after you. And I have a student who just recently got a job doing mainframe programming for IBM in the state of California, and he actually never had a programming job. He got his degree, had trouble finding work, and so he got a job as a mainframe developer. He's very happy, by the way. But, like with every programming job, they didn't put him in the front of some brand new product that's never been tested and for him to design the whole thing. They have him maintaining code. He's making a lot of money maintaining code, but what he's doing is he's learning, he's proving himself, and if he forgot these straight out of college, or if he, let's say he hadn't worked for a year, this would make it a whole lot easier for him to understand. You would actually be helping him out. And then if you're the developer that did it this way, he's in your debt just about. So I still do this, and I get I get dirty looks for every once in a while, and then I ask the person that gives me the dirty look, why is this a problem? And the answer is always So I love doing things like this. I love doing it because it self-documents the program. Now let's get rid of all of these parentheses, and let's go ahead and add some parentheses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, copy it, and I am going to put some parentheses around it. Let's add some parentheses. Where do I want to add them first? Let's add the parentheses right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add parentheses around this. So instead of the unary operator happening first, this addition is going to happen. Let's go ahead and save and build that. Look at the difference in the number. So by putting parentheses around an equation or around parts of an equation, you can really change the way that equation behaves mathematically. Let's go ahead and do another one here. This time I'm going to put parentheses around this. And this is a subtraction instead of an addition. So let's see if we get any differences there. And oh my God, yeah, we get a big difference. We get a huge difference there. So it depends upon where you put the parentheses and the position of the parentheses. But remember, if you put parentheses around the entire, or if you use parentheses when you're doing any kind of equation, you're taking away any mystery, right? Like if this is a brand new programmer and he sees this, as I mentioned earlier, he or she may have to go back into the textbook and take a look and see what are the hierarchy of operations. But if you put everything in parentheses, then that makes things better. And just to show you that I'm correct with that, I'm going to go ahead and put things in parentheses the way that they would be. And I did that a little bit earlier. I kind of wish I had kept it. So it's going to do that multiplication first. Then it's going to do this division. To be fair, let's go ahead and put this in parentheses because it does that unary first. Then it's going to do this multiplication after the division on the left side, after the multiplication and division. Then it's going to do this addition. Then it's going to do the subtraction. And let's see if those numbers are the same. And they are absolutely the same. So by putting parentheses on here again, you're making your coding a little bit, it's going to take you a little bit longer to code it, but you're really self-documenting the program. You're telling the next person to see it, this is how the program works. All right, so that's operator hierarchy mathematical. Very, very simple. Try it out, play around with it. I guarantee if you use parentheses, you're never going to go wrong as long as you use them correctly. And until the next time, keep on coding.